Introduction. Polycystic ovary syndrome, also known as PCOS, is a relatively new diagnosis in the world of medicine. The first description of it was made in 1935, but only since the start of the 21st century have doctors started to really understand the causes, effects, and most effective treatments for PCOS. And even now, a ridiculous number of doctors seem to have no clue how to really treat it. By some estimates, as many as 10% of the world's women may suffer from polycystic ovary syndrome. That's a lot of women. Yet many of these women know little about the condition itself, what it is, what it can mean for them, and most importantly, how to treat it. If you have been diagnosed with PCOS, it can feel overwhelming. Oftentimes, a general practitioner or primary care doctor will give the diagnosis, but will not understand much about how the woman can best live with this incurable condition. Sadly, many times doctors will prescribe standard treatments, usually either birth control pills, metformin, or a combination, but this will do little else. If this is the situation you are in, don't worry, you are not alone. This guide will help you learn in 7 steps how to best control your PCOS. Your goal should not be to simply grin and bear it, but to learn how you can have a happy and fulfilling life while living with PCOS. Please remember that this is not a medical textbook or guide. The information here is based on personal experience living with PCOS and is not a replacement for seeking proper medical care. See Section 2 for help learning how to find a good doctor who can assist with your individual healthcare needs. Step 1. Know your enemy by learning about PCOS. You sit in a chilly, white-walled room, dressed only in an awkward paper gown. You've just been through a battery of tests and feel anxious to hear the doctor's diagnosis. After what feels like an eternity, the doctor steps into the room, silently reviewing your file as he sits. In a matter-of-fact tone, he says 4 simple words which will change your life forever. You have PCOS. If you have heard those words, you know how upsetting they can be. Receiving a diagnosis of polycystic ovary syndrome is not like receiving a diagnosis of cancer. When a doctor tells you that you have cancer, they are sympathetic, consoling, and full of information. What does this mean for you? What does your future look like? What are your treatment options? Far too often, when a woman is told she has PCOS, it is not done with any sympathy or consoling, and rarely is the doctor ready with information. That's why, when talking about how to live with PCOS, the first thing most women need to do is to take it upon themselves to learn more about polycystic ovary syndrome. Here, we will provide an overview of what PCOS is, what are its causes, and how it affects women over the course of their lives. Remember 6th grade health class? To understand PCOS, first you must understand how the menstrual cycle works. For those who don't remember the awkward slideshows and videos from health class, here's the very simplified breakdown. First, estrogen and progesterone levels start to rise. This does a lot for a woman's body, but one important effect is that the increase in hormones trigger a thickening in the lining of the uterus. This is the body's preparing to host a fertilized embryo. Next, during ovulation, a mature egg leaves the ovary and travels through the fallopian tubes to the uterus. If the egg has not been fertilized when it reaches the uterus, hormone levels drop, causing menstruation, a shedding of the egg and uterine lining. So, the takeaway from this is that hormones are the catalyst for everything in the menstrual cycle, and if they are not in balance, or if something disrupts the production of estrogen, progesterone, or other hormones, like luteinizing hormone or follicle-stimulating hormone, then menstruation may not take place. PCOS messes up hormones. PCOS does not look the same for every woman. There are a list of symptoms which doctors use to diagnose the condition, but not all women will have every symptom. There are a variety of tests which might or might not be used to diagnose PCOS. What all cases do have in common, though, is this. The patient's hormone levels are out of balance. That's the real definition of PCOS, no matter what long-winded speeches a doctor might give. PCOS is indicated by a disruption in the hormonal balance of a woman's body. Because hormones are so vital to the menstrual cycle, this means that most women with PCOS experience irregular or absent periods, as well as infertility. The name of the condition, polycystic ovary syndrome, seems to indicate that it is caused by multiple cysts on the ovaries. That would make sense, right? In reality, PCOS causes cysts to form on the ovaries of some women, but that's not what causes the condition. If it were, it would be easy to cure by removing cysts surgically. But truthfully, the doctors don't know what causes PCOS, and many women are diagnosed without having any ovary cysts appear on imaging tests. Doctors believe genetics can play a role, since women are more likely to develop PCOS if their mother or sister has it. Symptoms and risk factors of PCOS. Since PCOS can have many faces, how do you identify it? In a clinic, the two symptoms that are considered the biggest indicators of PCOS are oligomenorrhea, irregular periods, and hypoandrogenism, an excess of the hormone androgen. If you have one or both of these, you will likely be told you have PCOS. Other symptoms may include amenorrhea, absence of periods, obesity, insulin resistance, obstructive sleep apnea, hirsutism, excessive hair growth, especially on the face, balding or thinning of the hair on the head, acne. As mentioned, these symptoms may not appear in all women. Many women with PCOS are very thin. This is sometimes called lean PCOS, while others may not experience a significant disruption in their menstrual cycle. Still others have regular periods, but they are extremely painful and heavy. It all depends on what hormones have been affected and how much your hormone levels are off. The symptoms above are what most people imagine when they think of polycystic ovary syndrome, but they are, in effect, the tip of the iceberg. Below the water, PCOS can involve many other risk factors. Women with untreated PCOS are more likely to develop diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, endometrial cancer, infertility, mental health problems such as depression and anxiety, liver disease, heart attack. With all these risk factors, it is easy to see that PCOS should not be ignored or taken lightly. Learning as much as possible about PCOS is an important first step in successfully living with the condition because it helps motivate you to action. Committing to and following through with a treatment plan is vital, but you can't do those things if you aren't motivated. So spend some time pondering over your condition and really think about what the consequences of ignoring it will be for you and your loved ones. Make a list of all the reasons why you are determined to manage your PCOS and keep it somewhere nearby where you can read it on days when you need an extra shot of motivation. When you've mustered up enough motivation, you can move on to the next step, which involves assembling a team of physicians. Step 2.